You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today's episode is 146, Mind Over Strategy. If you're a business owner who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. In today's episode, we are going to be diving into the topic of strengthening your mindset. Because quite frankly, it is going to be your number one most effective tool to stay in the game. Because here's what I know. I could literally wave a magic wand and gift you the perfect strategy for your business and your industry. I could show you the opportunities that may be all around you. And yet, if you haven't done the work to keep your mindset in the game, you will be missing all those opportunities. You'll also not even have the right mindset to be able to employ them successfully. So today, we are going to explore why it is so important to have mindset before strategy and specific ways in which you can strengthen your mindset. Now, before we jump in, I want to personally invite you to a masterclass that I am hosting this Friday, March 27th. This is a free masterclass. It's called Pivot, Navigating These Uncharted Waters in Your Small Business. I would love for you to join me. If you're listening to this past March 27th or you can't make it live on March 27th, go ahead and register and you will get the replay. This is completely free, but I think this is so important for where we're at right here and right now. Because here's what I know. Right now, we are all in uncharted waters as business owners, parents, and humans. But here's what I also know. No matter how uncertain the times may be, there are still specific strategies you can utilize to keep your sanity while also keeping your business afloat. And heck, maybe even thrive on the other side of this global crisis. In this free Pivot Masterclass, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So head on over to theproductivityspecialist.com/pivot. Now, this is different than what I hosted last week, which was a mastermind. This is me teaching and training you all of the best strategies that I'm actually sharing with my clients every single day on how to navigate, how to think outside the box, how to show up your best so that you are not going to drown in these uncharted waters. So come on over. I can't wait to see you there on Friday. And for all the details, head on over to theproductivityspecialist.com/pivot. And now, let's get to the straight talk. All right, so as you know, we're talking all about mindset, and I got to be honest with you, as of this recording, should this one go live, I've recorded this several times. And the reason is because I feel such a sense of responsibility to bring you the best content, the most value. And I have so much that I want to say around mindset and the power of mindset and specific ways and methods in which you can improve your mindset. And as I navigated that and really shifted this content for you today, I kept ending each recording thinking, I didn't nail it. That's not it. It's not it. I haven't quite landed on it. And so I sat on it. And so you may notice that this episode actually didn't go live at our normal time that our episodes drop at Monday at 3 a.m. Eastern. And the reason is because we're actually recording this on Monday. I recorded versions of this episode multiple times and ready to ship it. And my gut was telling me not to. And I have learned to just listen to that. And I did. And then this morning, I knew that I wanted to take another stab at it. And like any great idea, it came to me like a lightning bolt in the shower. And I thought, it's not me that needs to share this message. Now, it is me that needs to share this message, but not me alone. For those of you that have been a longtime listener of Productivity Straight Talk, I want you to welcome our special guest back to the show. And for those of you that are new and don't know, I want to introduce you to my 9.5-year-old son, Eric De La Garza. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk.
Thanks.
I'm so glad that you're here today. So this is catching you by a surprise, right? Like you still kind of have a sleepy face. I woke you up about 30 minutes ago and said, hey, do you want to be on the show today?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the lightning bolt moment that I had, because I've been processing so many different thoughts about what to share with you, is that we have something that we've been practicing in our family for some time. And it's something that I felt was so important in raising you up and just navigating life. And I realized it's the exact message that the listeners here need to hear today. So, Eric, I want to share with our listeners one affirmation that you say often. And I want to talk about what that means for you and how that's shown up for you. So, Eric, what is it that you think would be of value to our listeners as they are navigating these uncharted waters and they may not be sure what to do to get their business through this?
Well, I'm not personally a business owner, so I wouldn't really know what it would mean, but I think I know something similar that would help. Adapting and overcoming. That's an affirmation that I say to myself almost every day.
And why did you pick up the affirmation, adapt and overcome?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because me and my parents were on a road trip because my dad used to go on the road a lot and work. Mm-hmm. So one time we were in the RV and I couldn't reach the cereal. And my dad and my mom said, well, adapt and overcome. And I asked, what does that mean? And then they explained it to me. They said that it was trying to figure out what you needed so that you were able to do what you want. And how I adapted and overcome, I just grabbed a chair and started standing on it to grab the cereal. That's how I learned about it.
Right. And so now, and even in that time when we say, is this an opportunity to adapt and overcome? It's in all kinds of situations, but what's in common is that you get to a point where you feel like you can't do it, or you don't know how to do it, or you're not skilled to do it. Like you're lacking something to move forward in the way that you anticipated moving forward, right?
Right.
And so when we say something like, hey, Eric, how can you adapt and overcome? When we voice that to you in situations, what is it that you hear when we remind you, like, hey, how can you adapt and overcome?
I think about it as telling me to think about what you can do and think about what you will do. Because if you want to do something, you have to put in the effort to do it. So when I grabbed the chair, I had to grab the chair. I didn't ask Dad to grab it. I didn't ask my mom to grab it. I had to do the work, and I had to go get my cereal. So what I learned from that is I need to do what I need to do to adapt and overcome. So I believe that a big part of adapting and overcoming is putting the effort so that you're able to adapt and overcome.
That's great. So even if you feel like in the moment you don't know how to do something, it's almost like whether you tell yourself, because we do it as affirmations so that you can think what's possible by adapting and overcoming. But then like when Dad and I remind you in a situation that we see clearly, like, hey, Eric, how can you adapt and overcome? Do you think that that kind of unlocks possibilities that you didn't see at first in any given situation?
Absolutely.
So talk to me about what it feels like when you choose to not adapt or overcome.
It feels like I can't do anything. It feels like when I wanted to get that bowl of cereal, I couldn't because I couldn't reach the cereal. But then once my parents told me to adapt and overcome and they explained what that meant to me, I decided to go grab that chair and get what I wanted, the cereal. Mm-hmm. And that's how I learned about adapting and overcoming. And that's how it felt not to be adapting and overcoming. It felt like I couldn't do anything. It felt like I couldn't do it at all.
Right. And so pretty much we just invited you to think of doing things differently than the way that you had set out to do something, right? Like Okay, so let's just take this example you're sharing further. So when you're like, I cannot reach the cereal, right? Like you were too short, it was too high on the shelf. You wanted cereal, there's something you needed. And you, at that moment, were seeing one path. I'm too short to reach the cereal, right?
Right.
And so when we invited you to adapt and overcome, what we invited you to do is expand the possibilities of what other ways could you achieve the goal of grabbing your cereal, right?
Right.
Okay. So this is really, really important to hear is that it's not just one time that we shared this with him. It's not just, hey, did you know that in your toolbox you can adapt and overcome at any time? This is something that we constantly talk about in the home and remind you about so that you're exercising that muscle of when you come up against something that you don't know how to do, or it's new, or you feel like you don't have the skill sets to do it, we're encouraging you to think of ways in which you can accomplish the goal, right? And so it's not a one-time thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you do choose in those moments to adapt and overcome, how does that make you feel like on the inside? Like what does that do for you, Eric?
Well, I think it will help. I think it helps my self-esteem because now I know I can do it. Now I know it's not impossible to do it. Now I know I'm able to do stuff without having to get help from other people.
Okay, yeah. And sometimes adapting and overcome does mean asking for help, right?
Yes.
And so, like, I just wanted to clarify that. So sometimes the adapt and overcome is a way for you to figure it out yourself. And other times it's a way for you to articulate the exact help you need to get the thing or do the thing that you want to do. Is that right?
Yes.
So it sounds like adapting and overcoming has created moments of you feeling more confident and self-esteem. And that confidence is coming from reaching your goals when you thought that maybe you couldn't do a thing, right?
Right.
All right, awesome. So Eric, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to expand upon this idea for my listeners about adapting and overcoming, especially in these uncharted territories. But thank you for reminding us that the things that we work on in normal marketplaces, when our businesses are, when the world is more normal than it is now, those things are what serve us well and we need to double down on. And so thank you so much for being here, Eric.
Thank you for having me on here.
All right. Now I get it. We're talking much bigger and more serious things than getting the cereal. But the principle still stands. If you are in a place where you think that you do not have what it takes to navigate these uncertain times in your business, or you're feeling stuck, or you're feeling like I can't, and you do not have the mindset about moving forward, I want you to continually tell yourself, I can adapt and overcome. I adapt and overcome. You see, we do tell Eric these things in times where we, as his parents, find opportunity that he can adapt and overcome. But that can't always come from his parents. So what we really, really are looking to encourage is that he finds that within himself by saying affirmations regularly and reminding himself that he has in him the ability to adapt and overcome. And what that really does, from my perspective, is give him the tool set that says, I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know exactly how to move forward. But if I ask myself what's possible and I ask myself, how else can I still achieve this goal? He's opening up his mindset and going into it very positively. I have literally seen him shut down in times of, I can't, I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to do that. He's a kid. He's navigating life. You are an adult navigating business. And chances are you are saying these things or have said those things to yourself. So I would love to just insert this affirmation into your world, into your days, and share with you that you too can adapt and overcome. This is a time for you to make a stake and a claim on your business. The path forward that you saw for yourself just a week ago or 2 weeks ago has most definitely changed. no matter what industry you're in, some industries are radically changing during this time. Some are needing just a little bit of a pivot and repositioning and remessaging. I don't know where you're at in this time, but I know that I personally have clients whose businesses have completely shut down with zero revenue, and they are shifting and changing their focus to new opportunity of adapting. And in this time of adapting, looking for the positive of, yes, I can't do that, but I can do this. Yes, what I had set out to do in 2020 is now going to look differently. And the sooner you can get there and realize that this time is going to change, whether you change with it or not, will allow you to say, okay, so the circumstances are, my business is changing. The market is changing. The world is changing. Those are facts. What you need to decide is, are you going to change alongside it? Are you going to have the mindset that says, I can look at this as an opportunity? Adapting and overcoming, the actual strategy is going to be different for each of you, but the mindset is the same. I know I shared this at the beginning, but I cannot share this with you enough. If you are not in the game mentally, you are not in the game. If you are not in the game mentally, you are not in the game. Now, versions of this episode, as I shared with you, I've recorded it multiple times. I mean, I'm going to share some of that with you right now, but I want you to think practically, what is it that you need to stay in the game mentally? Because your strategies may look a little different than mine, but I'm going to give you some ways in which I think you can show up your best. For those of you that had a routine and that routine has literally been put in a box, shaken up, and spitted back out, I want you to find your new routine. I want you to tweak and adapt your routine that you had for the current situation you're in. Many of you are working at home with significant others and loved ones and fur babies and children underfoot, and that looks really different than what it did a week or 2 weeks ago. I want you to adapt, but I want you to hold on to the things that you value most to keep a strong mindset, whether that's meditation and journaling and working out, reaching out to friends. Do not isolate yourself. While we're doing social distancing physically, I don't want you to socially distance from your support group. So this could look like your peers or loved ones. Reach out to them. Keep that consistency during this time. I want you to have grace with yourself. What worked for you and served you well 2 weeks ago is not going to be exactly what serves you well today. So adapt your expectations. I have several friends that, for those of you that follow Enneagram, are off the charts Enneagram 3, which are the achievers, extremely goal-oriented. And it was very interesting for me to be able to support them and talk to them through this. And many of you may identify yourselves as this way. They were a little bit slower in adapting and overcoming because they were holding so tight to their vision and their goals that they had, from last month, right? For 2020 and beyond. And so for them, because they are charging so fast and so forward down achieving these goals, they weren't able to slow down to really wrap their minds around what does it look like to adapt, because they did not want to let go of that vision. Now, that's not right or wrong. I love them for it and I understand it. And I wouldn't expect any of them to just let go because they hold so tight to these goals, and that generally serves them extremely well in business. But in this time, I was inviting them to see that, yes, that plan worked in the market and in the situation we found ourselves in a few weeks ago. We have to look at it through the lens of where we're currently at and adapt and pivot. And some came around faster than others, but I just wanted to share that perspective with you. There are others of you that are out there that are coming to this situation feeling frozen, indecisive, Like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what the next strategy is. I was still figuring out the strategy to grow my business here and now, like in a normal market and in a normal circumstance. And so you may find yourself completely paralyzed thinking, well, if I was challenged in normal day to day, like this may seem like too much. And I want to speak to you specifically and tell you that you can choose to rise and thrive through this, that you can choose to adapt and overcome. And no matter how you're approaching this situation, whether you are charging forward and thinking no adapting needs to happen, or if you're freezing and not adapting and on one spectrum or the other of that, I want to share with you that the skill set and the practice of adapting and overcoming is going to serve you well when everything normalizes, no matter what this world looks like next month or next year. Everyone, we are in such a unique circumstance, and that almost nearly the entire world is under similar circumstances, and that almost never happens. But what I know from working with my clients is that circumstances that feel out of control actually happen all the time in our businesses. And so in the future, when things like you're personally, getting divorced, or you have a loved one that gets sick, or a business partnership that fails, another down market for whatever other reason, all of these things happen normally day to day in our lives. And this skill set that I'm sharing with you to keep a strong mindset and approach it as I can adapt and overcome will serve you forever and ever. And so what I love about this is that if you choose to grab onto the idea of practicing the ability to adapt and overcome, it's actually an investment and an asset that you can utilize forever. And my coach, Jessica Rodriguez, has shared with me an idea of looking for positive proof. So positive proof is that you can find other people in your industry that are doing good, or are shifting, or are adapting. And that positive proof allows you to look at it and be like, it's possible. Like, if it's possible for them, what parts of that work for me, and how can I shift and show up? And so for those of you that are already adapting and overcoming, know that you are a leader. Like, no matter what this looks like on your bottom line, while important, like, you are leading people. You are leading your customers. You are leading your team. You are leading others in your industry by showing up as an example of adapting and overcoming. I was in the business of real estate. That was my first career, is real estate. And so I was in the real estate industry back in 2007, 2008, 2009. And I saw firsthand positive proof that while in the real estate industry, and the real estate was the reason our market was the way that it was, there were people that adapted and overcame and came out thriving in the real estate market. But there was a large majority that just curled up, retreated, were not willing to adapt and overcome, that wanted to do business as usual, the same way they had always done it. And those businesses did not survive the real estate market. As I was looking at what to share with you, that was like the one thing that I took away that I think that we can draw on today in this market, is that those that adapt and overcome, they will freaking find a way to thrive in this marketplace. And I believe you can too. I believe that the sheer fact of you listening to this episode, that you are seeking out information and knowledge and resources to navigate these uncharted territories, tells me that you are in the fight. And I want to be in the fight with you. I want us all to put a stake in the ground and tell ourselves and tell anyone that will listen that we are fighting for our businesses. We are fighting for our businesses, not just because as business owners, like, this is the dream that we hold in our heart, but we are fighting so that we can provide for our families. We are fighting so we can provide for our employees, and we are fighting together. One thing that I shared last week on a peer mastermind that I hosted with some of my girlfriends that own businesses was that I felt like this time in my business, when this shift is happening, I felt like the mama bear came out in me. And the mama bear meaning like I was backed up in a corner and like, are you going to retreat or are you going to fight? And I was like, hell yes, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for my business. I'm going to fight so I can provide resources for those that I serve, for my clients. Like I am fighting for this because this is a dream that I am going to hold on to, and I am not just giving up this easily. And for me, the visualization was like, am I going to retreat or am I going to fight? And the fight came out in me. And I want the fight to come out in each of you. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. I just want to remind you that this isn't over. I am still providing resources. And if you have not already done so, head on over to theproductivityspecialist.com/pivot. Join me on this free masterclass. No matter when you're listening, I would love for you to join me live Friday, March 27th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard. But if you can't, or you're listening to this afterwards, I'm making the replay available forever, as long as it's valuable to us as we are navigating these uncharted territories. I would also ask you to do one more thing for me. If you found this episode to be valuable, help you in any way, I want you to share it with a fellow business owner or friend that you think it would help. I want you to share with them the resource of this masterclass, this Pivot Masterclass, because through being of service to others, we can find the hope and we can be a light when things feel very dark and uncertain. And so help me share this message. Help me share the message that we are in this fight together, that we can adapt and overcome, and that we will figure out a way to not just survive, but thrive in our businesses during this time. So that's my straight talk for you today. Until next time, have a productive week.